Hello, friends. Welcome to the newspaper editorial analysis of The Hindu for 26th April 2017, powered by Eckovation. I am Apoorv Mishra, and these are my credentials. If you want to see the newspaper editorial analysis for Indian Express, please find the link in the description below. You can join my study group for UPSC on Eckovation by clicking on this link. You can find this link also in the description below. You can email me your queries at apoorv@ecovation.com, or you could connect with me over Facebook. This is the link of my Facebook profile. Now, the first article on the Hindu editorial is important with respect to GS paper 2. It is on international relations, and the specific point of your syllabus is policies of developed countries on Indian interests. So this article is about USA and the policies of recent policies of USA after Donald Trump became the president. 100 days have been completed, and the specific policies which could impact Indian interests in these 100 days have been the TPP talks have been sort of stalled. There are rumors or newspaper reports that Paris deal could be rolled back. The INDCs of USA could be rolled back. The H-1B visa policy is also under cloud. The US Trade Representative has been again giving out reports which are antithetical to Indian policies. And also it talks, this article is very important because it talks about the policy of strategic altruism of USA. This policy means, this strategic altruism means that even though USA and India are not equivalent, USA will act in an altruistic manner with reference to India. But now it seems that this strategic altruism might be ending, and USA might be asking India to step up its response in Middle East, in Southeast Asia, and uh, and so on. Also, this article talks about China policy of Trump administration and the Pakistan policy and how these could impact India's interests. So all these are important points in themselves. Uh, this article cannot be a single question for your GS paper 2, but each of these policies could be a question, could form a question for your GS paper 2 and would need more material. So keep a tab on all the newspaper articles related to these policies. For example, there could be a question like, how is the new H-1B visa policy of USA going to affect the interest of Indian diaspora or Indian IT industry? Or there could be a question that how is the change China policy a threat to Indian interests? Change China policy of USA is a threat to Indian interests. So, as I said, each of these policies could become a question in your mains. Now, this article, Murder at Noon, is about the Maoist attack at Sukma on the CRPF forces. This is relevant to your GS paper 3 internal security portion. The specific point of your syllabus is linkages between development and spread of extremism. Uh, so this article talks about the policy of Maoists, which has been to attack infrastructure and thus hamper connectivity projects as well as development projects. It also talks about and questions what should be the state response to such policy of Maoists, and this could also be a question for you in your mains exam, and you should keep noting down points wherever they come, that this policy of Maoists to attack infrastructure, how should the state combat this policy? This article also talks about the causes of increase in such attacks recently. One of them is loopholes in intelligence gathering. The second is coordination between security forces like CRPF and the state police forces. And thirdly, specifically, the state police forces have been less proactive as they should be in in being at the forefront of the fight against Maoism. So these are the points this article covers. The next article is regarding the IMF, a call for reform. So this is relevant to your GS paper 2 international relations. The point is important international institutions, agencies, and fora. IMF is the forum which this article talks about. It talks about IMF reforms. So you must be knowing that in IMF there is a quota. The quota for developing countries is less than 50%. So the general review of quota, in which developing countries have been demanding an increased quota, has been delayed by 2 years. So this is causing dissent in developing countries. Also, another reform which developing countries are seeking is that traditionally IMF uses only short-term crisis management tools for developing countries and does not provide long-term development funds. So, developing countries have started to look to diversify. They are looking at competing institutions to IMF, like the New Development Bank by BRICS and the AIIB by China. So this article is very important for you. This is related to your GS paper 3 science and technology portion. It talks about issues related to IPR. You have a syllabus point specifically dedicated to this, and it talks about the RCEP. This is the sub-regional trade agreement in which India and China are involved. And in this agreement, uh, there are talks about a specific clause of data exclusivity for clinical trials. So this article talks about what data exclusivity exactly is and how it is a TRIPS plus measure. So TRIPS is a measure under the WTO agreement, and in these new sub-regional agreements, IP regime has been expanding and new clauses are being added. Data exclusivity is one of these clauses. This article talks about what data exclusivity is, the definition of data exclusivity, and how what are the issues which India will face because of these data exclusivity causes. It talks about economic, legal, and ethical issues. And you can get a direct question like this: that what is the data exclusivity clause of TRIPS agreement, and what are the discuss the economic, legal, and ethical issues arising for India because of such agreement. So the economic issue is that the low cost generic medicines which are available in India, they would get hampered because of these uh, data exclusivity clauses. The Section 3D of Patent Act, which prevents the evergreening of patents by pharmaceutical companies, this will get hampered because data exclusivity will give them a backdoor entry to it. And the ethical issue is that it would lead to repeated clinical trials and subject a number of humans to clinical trials of these drugs. So to understand all this in more detail, you could just go through this article and read it a bit carefully. It would be very useful to you. So this was the first editorial page. Now moving on to the second editorial page. This is basically an interview, and it is mostly relevant for your GS paper 3 ecology part, specifically related to the point conservation, environmental pollution and degradation. So the relevant points for our syllabus are those which talk about groundwater and its exploitation. And I have highlighted also here where you could find the relevant things, and you could and this will also be useful for students who have geography optional. So those who have geography optional specifically, please you can read this article carefully. It would be useful for you. Now, this article on tribals and tigers. So, this is relevant to your GS paper 3 again, ecology again, and the same point which was the last article. But this is more related to wildlife and the conflicts between ecology, wildlife, and on the one hand, and the tribals and their tribal rights on the other hand. So here, this article has at the core of it the recent news where National Tiger Conservation Authority ordered that the scheduled tribes uh, will not get their rights if under FRA, if it is in areas which are critical tiger habitats. So, as I said, the Forest Rights Act and its provision are important for you. You should know the major provisions of this act. It is a rights-based legislation, uh, and the another act which comes in conflict, often comes in conflict with this act, is Wildlife Protection Act 1972. So you should also know the major contentious provisions of this act. And also the provisions of these, the last two acts are important uh, with respect to your prelims, the major provisions of these acts. So you should be knowing this, especially students who are going to write prelims in coming in a couple of months. Now, this article can also be important from internal security perspective and Maoism, because when these rights are denied to these tribals and traditional dwellers of forests, that is when they turn to extremism and Maoism. So the points you get in this article can also be used in a question related to extremism. This can also be related to your GS paper one. In Indian society portion, there is you have to study about tribals, and specifically how tribal society gets impacted by this environmentalism and ecological legislations, specifically when they are imposed in a faulty manner, as is claimed in this Wildlife Protection Act. Now, moving on this to this portion of the newspaper, this article is not important. This article is also not important. Now, this data point, it is about countries which are biggest military spenders. In general, it is not a very useful statistic for you, but it can be used in some essay related to, if you get some essay related to strategic and geopolitics in South Asia, and also for geography optional students, if they get a question related to geopolitics, they could use this data. So this was the newspaper, the analysis of the Hindu for today. If you think this video was beneficial to you, you could you please like this video. If you think your friends will find this video beneficial as well, please share this video on Facebook and WhatsApp. And if you want to stay up to date with these videos every day, then hit the subscribe button. Apart from this, if you want more discussions and more free tests, free mock tests and analysis of those mock tests by me and other fellow aspirants, you can join the Eckovation study group for UPSC by clicking on this link. You can find this link in the description below. Thank you very much.